All right, good afternoon. What a beautiful, beautiful summer, or seems like the end of summer, early fall day. And we're going to watch the shade hopefully go by so that everybody can enjoy the day. My name is Gretchen Bulova. I'm the director of the Office of Historic Alexandria. And on behalf of the city of Alexandria, I want to welcome you to this historic occasion, the unveiling of the Virginia State Historic Marker honoring the Colored Rosemont community. Yay! Bounded by Pendleton, Fayette, Madison, and Northwest Streets, Colored Rosemont stands as a reminder of Alexandria's segregation history. We want to gather today to elevate the story of this once thriving African-American neighborhood, a neighborhood of professional men and women, a neighborhood of families, a neighborhood filled with children, and a neighborhood built with love, determination, and resilience. This day would not have been possible without the advocacy, leadership, and commitment of many, many people here today. The desire for a marker began with Mr. Stanley Green and a phone call. He's the man of the hour. He made a phone call to Mayor Justin Wilson several years ago, pre-pandemic several years ago. And I'm very pleased that we received word from the Department of Historic Resources before the end of Mayor Wilson's term that this marker was approved. I felt very comforted in the fact that we were able to achieve this before he left office. And while Mayor Wilson is not able to join us today, he shares in today's joy. To begin our program, I invite Mr. John Green to the microphone to lead us in the singing of the national anthem. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Before I start singing, I want to acknowledge two of our oldest residents of Colored Rosemont. Ms. Beatrice Cross Taylor, and I just saw Mrs. Frances Burke. Oh, there she is. Mrs. Frances Burke. They are all, they're not on the program. There's a lot that went into this, but anyway, they're both in their 90s. So I think we should honor them. Just wanted to recognize them. Now, I'm the cantor, I'm just leading the song, so I'm asking everybody to sing. We don't have a flag, but I ask that if you're able to please stand. I heard a recording. Ready? Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose brush stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that the flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land and of the sea, and the home of the brave.
That was fantastic. Thank you. It is now my honor to welcome Mayor Aaliyah Gaskins, the mayor of the city of Alexandria. Mayor, let's give her a round of applause. Mayor Gaskins works to ensure that all Alexandrians are recognized and represented in the stories we tell and the spaces we create. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Gaskins.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is such an honor to be with you as we come together to recognize Colored Rosemont community with a historic marker. Today we are here to do more than just mark a place. We are here to celebrate and uplift the stories of so many Black Alexandrians who have shaped our history in our community. Stories that have often been overlooked or unrepresented, but that are at the core of the city that we have today. I first want to acknowledge many of the dignitaries who have joined us for this ceremony. First, we have Vice Mayor Sarah Bagley. We have Councilwoman Jacinta Green. We have Councilman Abdel El-Nubi. We have Councilman John Taylor Chapman. We have our School Board Chair, Michelle Reif. And we have our former mayor, Bill Ewell. Oh. We also have Councilman Kirk McPike and our city manager, Jim Parajan. Marked by Pendleton, Fayette, Northwest, and Madison streets, many people walk through here, bike through here, drive past, yet few know the story of Colored Rosemont. Few know the role that Virginia Thomas played and her foresight in selling plots of land to Black Alexandrians. Few know about the families, the Adkins, the Armstrongs, the Basses, the Bates, the Berries, the Burkes, the Carters, the Careys, the Churchills, the Crosses, the Dundas, the Greens, the Griffins, the Hickman, the Jacksons, the Johnsons, the Majors, the McCrays, the Morrisons, the Thompsons, the Tuckers, the Wattersons, the Watsons, the Worthies, the Youngs, and the other families that lived here. I take the time to say each of their names because their names and their legacies are part of why we are joined here today. We're joined here to celebrate and recognize their foresight and their perseverance, but also the work that they put in, not just to build their lives, but to make sure that they built a community, a neighborhood where neighbors took care of neighborhoods. We come together to talk about the shames, the harms of racism and segregation in our city. The fact that Blacks were not able to rent or buy in neighboring neighborhoods like Rosemont just up the street. But we also, as I said, come to do more than just that. It's one thing to acknowledge the harms. It's another thing to do the work to correct it. We are here to make sure that stories that were once silenced are told. We're here to make sure that we do the work that is necessary at a time when so many want to erase our history and act as if it never happened. We say that that's not going to happen here in Alexandria. We say that the work ahead, it begins with this important marker, but that's just where it starts. We will continue to collect oral histories, we will continue to collect photos and memorabilia, but we're not gonna just collect it, we're gonna teach it until we make sure that every single Alexandrian, every single resident of Northern Virginia and across this Commonwealth and our country understand the legacy, the resilience, and the perseverance of Black families in our city. Because our community is shaped by their stories. Our community is shaped by the bricks that they laid, the stores that they owned, the businesses that they created, and the work that they have done every single day to make sure that so many of us, and me, as our city's first Black female mayor, could be standing here today. And so as we celebrate today's historic marker, I also want to say that we commit ourselves to another form of work. When we learn, and you're going to hear more about the stories from Dr. Moon, the power of this story is one that is rooted in home ownership and the transformation that is provided when we're able to buy for ourselves and create generational wealth. That is a story that is often out of reach for far too many Alexandrians, particularly African Americans in our city. Many of us who sit on the council, we spent this morning at our public hearing. Many speakers came, there were over 20 speakers, but the majority were residents of our public housing. who told stories of inequality, inequities, who told stories of issues with housing quality and conditions. But more importantly, they told stories that made it seem as if home ownership is not even a dream that they can think about at this time. And so you have a council that, as we think about the transformative power of Colored Rosemont, this is a council that is also working forward towards a future where home ownership is not just a dream, but a reality for more families in our city. And so I thank you for being here today. You standing here, I see, is a commitment not only to our history, but is a commitment to be our partner in the work ahead, a partner in making sure that everyone who lives in our city feels as though they belong, but that everyone who lives in our city doesn't just live to survive, but lives to be able to thrive. Thank you.
Mayor Gaskins, thank you for your words, your leadership, and your support of history and the people and really building this community. We all appreciate so much what you're doing for all of us. Thank you. We are honored and excited to be joined by LaToya Gray Sparks, the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Department of Historic Resources. So she drove all the way up from Richmond to join us today. The Virginia Historic Marker Commission plays a vital role in identifying and commemorating important sites and stories throughout our Commonwealth. Please join me in welcoming LaToya Gray Sparks.
Thank you, Gretchen. Good afternoon. I am LaToya Gray Sparks, the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, also known as DHR. DHR is the state's Historic Preservation Office, which oversees the state's Historic Marker Program. Virginia's first historic markers were erected in 1927, making ours the oldest state marker program in the country. Since then, we have placed more than 2,600 signs across the Commonwealth. The Historic Marker Program offers a unique and a very visible way to inform and educate the public. Our objective is to link important stories about Virginia's past to the landscape where they took place. Many new markers originate through our application process. Each potential marker topic must display regional, statewide, or national significance. Each marker text undergoes a rigorous fact-checking process before being presented for final approval to the Virginia Board of Historic Resources, whose members are appointed by the governor. Over the last 10 years, 54% of all new markers have highlighted African American history, a topic that was largely ignored in the program's first 5 decades. This figure rises to 66% when we look at the last 5 years, and the Colored Rosemont historic marker will add to that number. DHR, yes. DHR would like to thank everyone who worked to make this marker and today's dedication a reality. This includes the City of Alexandria and the Office of Historic Alexandria for sponsoring this marker. Thank you to the residents of the Colored Rosemont community and their descendants for participating in this project and for telling your stories. Gretchen Belova, we also like to thank you from the Historic Alexandria office for working closely with DHR throughout the approval process and Alexandria's Department of Transportation and Environmental Services for installing the marker. Finally, I want to thank all of you who are attending today's unveiling on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. You could be anywhere today, but you are here, and that's so important, and it means a lot to us. We at DHR appreciate the commitment that all of you have made to this important project of educating the public about Virginia's past and giving all who pass by here now the opportunity to learn about housing policy and racial discrimination here in Alexandria, as well as the vibrant, beautiful, and historic African American neighborhood that once stood here. Thank you.
It is now my distinct privilege to introduce Dr. Kristen Moon, a professor in the History and American Studies program at the University of Mary Washington. Her teaching and research span U.S. immigration history, popular culture, race and ethnic studies, foodways, and consumerism. Through her scholarship in community engagement, she has deepened our understanding of how diverse communities have been shaped and remembered, and she continues to ensure that communities like Colored Rosemont are recognized and preserved. I'd like to thank the Historic Alexandria Foundation for providing financial support for Dr. Moon's research on Colored Rosemont. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kristen Moon.
Thanks, Gretchen, for that introduction. And thank you all for coming on this beautiful day. First and foremost, I promise that I will keep my comments brief. It's not my skill set, but I will try. First and foremost, let me be clear. Alexandria's history is Black history. Thank you. It is central to it. From its very beginnings with the international slave trade to the civil rights movement after World War II, to the free communities, those vibrant communities prior to and during the Civil War, to our work today, documenting, curating, preserving, and memorializing. They are central to it all. They literally built this city. Their resilience sustains us, and their creativity and leadership is with us right now. Thank you. With that being said, we also have to come to terms with our complicated past in places like Colored Rosemont, which is, again, this amazing community, but is also one of many in this amazing community of ours here in Alexandria. Colored Rosemont emerged at the most unlikely of moments during the height of Jim Crow segregation in the 1920s and 1930s. It became a veritable safe haven for its residents, many of whom were new arrivals from rural Virginia, such as Orange County, or South Carolina and Georgia. A handful, however, also had deep roots in our region, coming from free and enslaved families that lived elsewhere in Fairfax County and Arlington and Prince William during the 19th century. These names we know, Carter and Fairfax. This community was where people went to work, went to school, children played in people's yards and on sidewalks, they loved their gardening, they went to church, and they practiced just general human fellowship. But with that, we also see the specter of systemic racism when our city leaders made a choice in the early 1960s to target this neighborhood, as it had targeted many neighborhoods in the mid-20th century under the guise of a quote-unquote public good. Thank you. That public good, of course, destroyed people's familial wealth. It pushed or increased the need for public housing in a circumscribed housing market, and then made families make the hard choice of leaving Alexandria, of going to places like Maryland or DC or Fairfax or Prince William County. When we speak these truths, we affirm our humanity, but we also should demand more of ourselves and our leaders. We need to listen and learn to our elders. We need to invest in our archives to make them more accessible to all of us. And we need to ensure that these stories are not erased or silenced, but fully documented in all of their complexity. With this, there is another truth, one that as a historian I particularly don't like, but it's one that I often have to grapple with. And that is, history is never done. It is not a product, it is a process. It is messy, it's full of contradictions, there's always another document to find. We know that. However, we also know that we need to build a strong foundation about who we are, both past and present, so that future generations can bring new tools to our past, who can question our assumptions, and ultimately further the goal of creating a more inclusive Alexandria. Thank you very much, and now I'm going to turn it back to Gretchen.
Kristen is just terrific, and her research has really moved us forward in so many projects throughout our community. We're very lucky to have her as a resident of Alexandria. We're privileged now to hear from descendants of the Colored Rosemont community. Their voices connect us directly to this history, bringing personal stories, memories, and lived experiences to the forefront. Through their accounts, we are reminded that history is not only in our museums and in our archives, it is in the people, families, and neighborhoods that shaped Alexandria. Please join me in welcoming Veronica Green Pace, Sheila Cross Reed, and Deborah Turner. Feel free to move the mic up.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Veronica Green Pace. I'm known as Landa in the Colored Rosemont community. It's short form of my middle name, Yolanda. I'm going to defy the rules and protocol of public speaking because I'm emotional right now. So I'm going to stick to my script because if I look at your faces and the memories come flooding back, it'll be waterworks. So good afternoon and welcome. And I'm also a stakeholder in this project. We are thankful for the collaboration between the Office of Historic Alexandria and the Colored Rosemont Stakeholder Advisory Committee, culminating in the dedication of the sign today. The sign represents and is the evidence of the significant African American presence, can you hear me okay, in Alexandria, but it is bittersweet. Happy for the recognition, but sad when I look out at the physical disappearance of our beloved Rosemont. What could not be conveyed by the marker today is the vibrant, solid community we were born into, raised in, and thrived in. The total human experience was lived in Colored Rosemont. The houses were modest and humble, but no less, we made up a vibrant community. Despise not humble beginnings, amen? There are so many communities that have been built over, and two come right to mind, one not too far from here, the village of Willard before Dulles Airport, Seneca Village before Central Park in New York City, just to name a few. They have been redeveloped and renamed, and I think they're going to call this West Braddock. They've got a new name for this area also. Our communities have been routinely marginalized, dismissed, and erased. African Americans or black people are not a monolith. There is so much diversity, and so it was in Colored Rosemont. And that's what I'm going to try to, without getting emotional, talk about today. I got permission from my sister. There are many faith traditions here in Colored Rosemont. Baptists, Methodists, and even diversity within Methodism. United Methodists. African Methodist Episcopal Zion of Methodism. Christian Methodist Episcopal Methodism, that's the denomination we were raised in. Catholic, Presbyterian, Jehovah's Witness, and atheist. Diversity of foodways are based on the family migration routes here to Alexandria from North and South Carolina, Georgia, the Piedmont area of Virginia, where we are descended from, even Northern Virginia, and further deeper in the South. How so, you may say, or ask the question. Grits and rice versus fried potatoes and fried apples for breakfast. Okra versus green beans. What about possum versus venison and rabbit? Diversity in the military commitment in this community. My father was a veteran of World War II, and there were many other veterans here in Colored Rosemont, and other conflicts. And they served in the Army, they served in the Navy, they served in the Air Force. Now, this is a little lighthearted, I hope. Even diversity, as I was thinking about this, in our pet ownership. Mrs. Daisy Cross had cats. The Watersons had fox, Regal Great Dane. The Basses had Spot. He was a Jack Russell Terrier mix. And daily, he and Fox would get in a skirmish. It was always excitement during midday when the two of them got into it. And our daddy had beagles, and he built a kennel in the back. My father was an avid hunter. And outdoorsman, period. Thank you, Stanley. And there were occasional complaints about Daddy's beagles, about the barking. And I remember the response my mother told a neighbor. She said, well, they can't talk. The Burkes had that rambunctious collie. Miss Annie Lee, and George Kelly, they lived in the 700 block of North Payne Street. They had this cantankerous breed dog. We never knew what breed he was, but this was a daily occurrence, or however often we had to journey there. Whenever we had to go to or from Watson's store, he would chase us. It's reminiscent of that scene in A Christmas Story. If you're familiar with that movie, when Swartz chases Ralphie and Randy coming home from school, that was a daily occurrence. And yes, we had our own grocer, our own corner store, located on Madison Street across from Parker Gray High School, from which I graduated. Our neighborhood, Seamstreets, was on the 600 block of North West Street. Her daughter, Miss Alice, sold dinners. They also rented out what we would call tiny residences today in the back of their houses for people who were passing through or decided to make Alexandria their home. Douglas Bass Sr. owned this property you see to my left, and Mr. Bass owned his own trash and hauling business. Shout out for the Basses, amen. We observed and celebrated birthdays, holidays, fireworks for the 4th of July. My parents would only let us have sparklers because they were so careful to take care of us and our safety. There were cabarets, proms, graduations, cookouts, you name it. We supported each other in grief and loss also. In summer, we played outside, and I'm thinking about this driveway now, played hide and seek, dodgeball, hopscotch, tag, riding our bikes, touch football, jacks, you name it. And what I'm trying to convey is the whole entire human experience of human beings, although we were in a segregated society. We were safe, we were protected, and we were insular. I'm going to do a side note. In wintertime, we don't have winters, at least in my memory. They said, we edit our past, or revise it. But in winter, we used to have really cold winters. We used to have really serious snowstorms, and we would have icicles hanging from the eaves, and we would break those off and have fake sword fights. So we had fun here in Colored Rosemont, sledding and snowball fights, of course. And some evenings, I remember the Majors were next door to us, and they were a musical family. And Miss Mary Major Fields tried to teach me piano when I was very little. It failed. But I remember she and my dad were avid Chinese checker players, and my dad attended Virginia State College, which is Trojans in the house, including my daughter. and it's, of course, now Virginia State University. And they would make so much noise. You know, your memories, when you start thinking about things, your memory starts triggering and firing off a lot of things. And they were so intense with Chinese checkers. You know, they would hit the board. It was a metal board. And then they both of them attended Virginia State. Ms. Mary Major Fields was a music teacher at Charles Houston. And I used to hear them reminisce about their days at Virginia State College, as it was called then. And education. Education is very important in this community. And the attendant activities that surrounded those. They were integral to our community. May Day celebration at Charles Houston Elementary School. The football, basketball games, track meets at Parker Gray High School. And our mascot was Bulldog, and the legendary Coach Lewis Johnson, they often liken his presence to the Bulldog, for those who remember. What about the annual stage productions at Parker Gray? One year was Bye Bye Birdie. Another year the theme was the Roaring Twenties with period costumes. Ms. Ruby Johnson and other teachers insisted on and enforced excellence. Colored Rosemont, a community resilient, resourceful, diverse, supportive, is commemorated here today. Despite the harsh realities of segregation, life here encompassed celebration, triumph, sorrow, and yes, some dysfunction. But we lived in a caring, safe community. Real life, real people. Debbie had asked me, did I time myself? I didn't. But this, and I've submitted this to, for the archives. And I was born right here at 1312 Wythe Street. Stanley, John, my cousin Dodie is here, but her brother, Bobby, we called him Robert Thomas Jr., he was also born here, and another cousin, James Butch Nelson. And when I was checking in at an appointment at Kaiser, and they go over your history because, you know, as we age, there are issues. And where was I born? How was I born? I was a breech baby. And I told her I was born at home. And she said, by a midwife? Oh, no. Dr. Oswald Durant. His building and office are still standing there today. And I think they may have put a commemorative marker there. My mother tells a story like this. I was a breech baby, born at home. And when you have home births, I think it's a law, you have to register it with the health department. And she said, Dr. Durant, related to her later, they asked her, who survived, the mom or the baby? And they were astonished that he had that skill to deliver a breech baby at home. That's worthy of praise. And the historians and other people have spoken here. We were born at home because black doctors did not have privileges in most white hospitals back then. I was born in 1946, so that tells you a lot. I grew up in the Jim Crow era, and I have distilled memories, and they formed me, they shaped me, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be a black Alexandrian. These were homeowners, black homeowners. Saw something on the website today, and semantics is kind of funny. They said that what has happened here is systemic disinvestment. Isn't that cute? Okay, Debbie, I'm winding up. Whoever's next after me. But it's bittersweet. Memories, life happened here. And I'm not going to cry. I'll continue and then I'll sit down. The Colored Rosemont, I remember growing up, consisted of mainly homeowners, and there were a few renters. And as I did before, I spoke of Watson's store. And my dad and my mom tells a story that after World War II, when my father was honorably discharged from the from the Navy, and my aunt and uncle, Robert and Eva Green, were living here, and they shared this house for a small bit of time. Their first child, Bobby, Robert Jr., was born here. And how at Watson's store, after the war, you had to have rations. And at Watson's store, black-owned, he would extend credit to them. And it was an insular community, and we looked after each other, and we took care of ourselves. So if you take anything away from today, and especially for our young people who may not, I have a whole bunch more history, but I'll stop, is that resourcefulness, the drive, the intention to survive and to make it is part of our culture, it's part of the fabric of who we are, and it's part of the so-called American dream. We're going to make it. So I'm pleased and sad that we can commemorate Colored Rosemont. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know why I have to follow behind Landa, okay? Because she's just about told everything that you can imagine about the Colored Rosemont. Nonetheless, it's a supreme honor for me to be here today to be able to speak to you guys. And I too, obviously, I'm very emotional because this is my home that I came from. And much has happened when I look across the street and see where we lived over there on the north side, and I'll tell you about that, and you could hear in my voice sometimes like some emotion, but that's okay. I want to thank the city council and the dignitaries who are here today, the former mayor and the mayor. I thought that you gave a fabulous speech today. Thank you, kudos to you. Also, I want to give special recognition to Stanley Green, who we call Blood, because he is the one who made this happen. And I'm so proud of him and his family, everybody like kind of kicked in. But for myself, my family is the Cross family, and there were two eras of Colored Rosemont. It was the first era that was the original owners who bought over here, and that was about 1929, I think, when they first built the properties over there. The Greens, then there was another era with the Greens and the Bassett's who came on the south side. But for on outside, my great-grandmother, Daisy Cross, and my great-grandfather, Robert Cross, purchased a home over there and had 9 children. The home was right there, just about that corner, and right side it was 1321, 1319. So he had 1321, 1319. So he owned 2 houses, one of which he rented out. Now, the 9 children were raised here in the second generation. I am the 4th generation. I'm 78 years old. I'm the 4th generation here in Colored Rosemont, one of the few of the 4th generation. Anyway, my mother was the 3rd. Inez was the 3rd generation. So anyway, remember my mom. So when they moved out, the first generation moved out, they all moved right here in the same community, the same neighborhood. Right around the corner was my Uncle Haywood. Oh, I'm sorry, right around the corner. I said my family moved here in the same neighborhood after they finished, like the first generation, then they moved out, but they moved here in the same neighborhood because this is our home, and they knew everybody. This was a big family. Everyone knew everyone, and we considered each other to be family. Anyway, my Uncle Haywood lived around the corner, and my Uncle Richard and my Uncle Charlie up the street. My mother moved around the corner. Eventually, my grandmother lived right here on the corner here. So we were all entrenched with Colored Rosemont. Now, let's talk about this community. Let's first understand clearly that this was in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and let's make no qualms about this. This is a very racist type of environment that we live in, systemic racism that we grew up in. And when Landa talks about the things that we encountered, we take it with a grain of salt because it's bitter and sweet. Yes, it was racism, and this was Colored Rosemont. I understand the word colored. We lived here, but across where that train track, across there is Rosemont. But we couldn't go to Rosemont. We were not allowed to go over there. We had no swimming pool. We couldn't use their swimming pool. Later, 2 African Americans were killed, drowned in the Potomac River where we were allowed to swim. And as a result of that, we did get a swimming pool. But prior to that, we did not have a swimming pool. We don't have a tennis courts, skating rinks, none of that. I regret to today. One of my greatest regrets is that I did not learn how to play tennis at a young age. You can play better. But nonetheless, we didn't experience overt racism, meaning that people didn't come here and spit in your face and call you the N-word. But you knew your place. And so therefore, we conducted ourselves accordingly. And our parents made sure that we were raised properly with good manners, good manners in which we conducted ourselves with each other, as well as the adults were always yes ma'am, no ma'am, Miss So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so. It was incumbent upon them to make sure that we were properly trained for what we may have to contend with as we went out into the world. Lana told part about how we played. We had this street right here was not paved, okay? It came paved later. The original families who lived here with my cousin B right here, and also Francis Burke, and our family had outhouses. And this street was not paved, so therefore it was later that it was paved, and then we played out in the street. The kind of games that Lana just talked about, as far as the dodgeball and the hide and seek and jump rope, whatever, but we didn't have a playground. But yet and still, we had a great time. We loved each other. We came out every day. We fight sometimes, but it was like your family was, your neighbors were like your extended family, per se. You can understand what I mean. It's a very kind of unique environment that I feel privy to have actually grown up in, because I learned later in life that all neighborhoods are not like that. You know, some neighborhoods are just uncaring, very hostile, you know, not in any way concerned about the things that matter in one's life. Now, what I said was, and you're absolutely right, Joyce, after the drowning occurred about 4 or 5 years later, the city, the African Americans, the Johnson brothers, drowned down at the river. They drowned down at the river. And so as a result of that, the black community stood up and demanded that we have a swimming pool, which was the Johnson swimming pool. And yay, that was a wonderful pool. We learned how to swim. We learned how to, we did races. We did water shows. You know, this was all creative influence of what we came up in. It was fabulous. Like I said, my cousin B, who tells stories, I wish she could talk today, because she has fabulous stories about how she grew up. And one of the things she tells us about is when she and my aunt Lois, who's 101 years old, who could not be here today, who was the oldest resident. Unfortunately, she's not here. But they used to take the mortgage money for the women who had developed some of these properties. I think Virginia Thomas, that she took the money to her house up on Princess Street in an envelope. Which is interesting, because number one, for 33 years I've been a real estate broker and developer. So this is very close to my heart to understand the dynamics of what was happening here. In the first place, black people could not own property or houses. So how did that happen? How did they buy these houses? And then not only that, they could not get a loan from a bank. So how were they financed? Yes, Ms. Thomas. So whatever rules and regulations she had is what they had to abide by. I don't know, I'd like to find out what were the differences between the prices that these houses were sold for here and the same houses or similar houses over across the railroad track, to kind of get some parity as to what exactly was going on. But obviously we know that these things were not equitable. The street itself is, I have to keep pointing to my house across the street. Anyway, it was built on a spring. I don't know if you know that. So therefore, when it rained heavily, then we had floods all down the street. And we were so silly and foolish, we got out there and played in the flood. But nonetheless, it was a hardship to the people who lived here. The land itself was not the most desirable because of the fact that it was quasi, let's say, kind of barren. So therefore, the houses that were built here were, as I understand it, they had outhouses, and they did not have inside houses. they had maybe a little bit of a porch, but there were no closets. And so my Aunt Lois, the one that's 101 years old, she's very outspoken, by the way. She said, how in the hell are you buying real houses with no closets? For anybody. But nonetheless, think about the desperation of our ancestors during that time period when there was no possibility by law that they could buy a house. So all of a sudden, the opportunity emerged for them to be able to buy a house, and as a result of those home purchases, we were one of the few only African American communities with home ownership. Now, what did that do? That enabled that particular community, our community, to be able to be one of the first communities to be able to deal with and establish generational wealth. Let's have a round of applause. That's extremely important because generational wealth means a lot. Those homes that were built and the people, my ancestors or my relatives or my schoolmates, my homies who lived here, they were able to provide somewhat of a better life because of the fact that they did not have to pay rent. They did not have to contend with not being able to give anything to their families. So again, let's have a round of applause for my community, Colored Rosemont.
Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Turner, because that's what my grandfather said. You pronounce your name Deborah, not Deborah. So my friends in Colored Rosemont call me Debbie. Colored Rosemont was a caring community, rich in love, vibrant, alive, peaceful, safe, a sense of connection, belonging not just to my immediate family, but to the whole Colored Rosemont. Families receive comfort, encouragement, and support from others in difficult time. I can run across the street and get Miss Carrie Green when my grandmother was having seizures. Mr. Haver Cross would stop by after work to check on my grandmother and his mother, Miss Daisy, every day. Mr. Punch and Miss Yvonne would come to my grandmother for marriage counseling. You needed something, the neighbors had it for you. I am the granddaughter of Parker and Pearl Watterson, and they had 5 children. Hold on. Let me do this. That's my cousin. Vivian, Jeannie, Pearl was my mother. Aunt Catherine, a.k.a. Miss Piggy. Parker, a.k.a. Uncle Buddy. And a stepbrother, Arusha. 1315 is where my nephew stays now currently. That's Rashard's, Larry's son. He raised your hand. Right across the street is where we lived. 1315 Wythe Street was a 3-bedroom ranch full of guidance, discipline, love, and peace, and a door that was never locked. Oh, the black pot-belly stove in the dining room, stoked with coals to heat up the house in the wintertime. My grandfather, with his one-piece long john back hanging down, walking to the bathroom, which is connected to the porch, off the kitchen. We didn't have inside plumbing at the time. Every morning, my grandmother would rise getting dressed, which included her apron to start the day. I could still smell the coffee percolating, meals being prepared, praying and eating together every day, 3 times a day. You can always hear my grandmother humming Sweet Hour Prayer all day long while she worked. She couldn't whistle, but she could hum. Church on Sundays, and that house was full of uncles, aunts, and cousins having a good old feast. My Uncle Robert came by every Sunday to see his sister Toots. They called her Toots, my grandmother, Pearl, and always giving us a quarter before he left. When my grandmother would go to Baltimore to see her sister, it was let the good times roll. My Uncle Parker, Uncle Buddy, and his friend Delboy would throw the best parties in Colored Rosemont. Everybody was invited. Good music, good stories, good food, and some of us kids got to stay up late. Now that was fun. When I look back, I was grateful to have those moments with my grandmother tending to the garden of huge blue hydrangeas, rambling red roses, grapevines, peach tree, spearmint, and other herbs planted below the kitchen window. Later in life, I became a gardener. Good times also was playing with my friends, whether it was jumping rope, hopscotch, jack, swimming at the Johnson Pool, kickball, baseball on Mr. Watkins' property next to his huge white house on Payne Street. And we had a tree house and a swing, rope ties to the tree made by one of the Burke boys. They were very creative. We skated in line, each holding on a long rope coming down from Payne Street, down Wythe Street, and if we skated on the sidewalk, Miss Lily lived next door to us. She did not permit us to skate in front of her house. So before we got to her house, we had to jump in the street, come back into our driveway, and continue down the sidewalk. Yes, most of the time we were obedient. I do not know how we coordinated these activities, but we did, and we had fun. Most of us went vacation Bible school together for 2 weeks, and we stayed all day long. Some of us went to confession with our Catholic friends. The Hills and the Burkes. And we were Baptists and Methodists, just curious kids, wanted to know what was confession all about. So we would always walk all the way up to Wythe Street to St. Joe and go into the church and see what they do when they do confession. We also entertain ourselves by sitting on the corner of Payne and Wythe Street, waiting for Parker Gray High School to let out. There was always going to be a good fight. We sat on the curb every day and waited for them to come down the streets. It was what we did. We were living a good life until the city targeted our neighborhood to be uprooted, disrupted a great community, and then the fight was on. I was around 12 or 13 years old, not really understanding what was going on, and it broke my heart. And yes, it broke my grandmother's heart. After we moved, she began to have more seizures frequently, a stroke, and her life ended in Woodbine Nursing Home. And every day after we moved, I came back to 1315. There was no keys. I walked through the empty house every day for 2 or 3 months by myself. I didn't tell anybody I was going through there, but I just walked through the house, went to each room. I could tell you every piece of furniture wherever it was placed. But I just sometimes sat in the floor or sat on the back porch and just had great memories. And then I went on home from school. But every day I did that for a while until they tore down the house. That was the great impact it had on a young child like me, disrupting my neighborhood and my way of living. The truth is, they took away my old neighborhood, but they can't take the Colored Rosemont out of me. It is in my blood. Love you, Colored Rose, forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica, Sheila, and Debbie. That was amazing. And the power of personal stories and experiences is what we're trying to capture here in historic Alexandria. And I'd like to quickly introduce Francesco Del Salvatore. If you want to wave in the back, he is our oral history manager who is working to collect the personal stories of basically everyone here in Alexandria, right, Francesco? Yes, so thank you. So we have one more special guest not on the program. If I could introduce Maria Edwards, and I'm not quite sure where Maria is. Come on up, Maria. I see you got a shady spot. I know. Come on up.
Greetings, everyone. Our ancestors are smiling. They're smiling at all of us. They're enjoying this, I'm sure. And I can get kind of wordy also, so I brought my little thing to stay on track. I got to stay on track. Okay. Maria Major Parker Edwards, as a descendant of Fred and Ophelia Major. Okay, they lived right there at 1314 13, 14. Yes, right next to the Green family. Yes. I was born to the youngest of their children, Eunice Major, Thomas, and Christopher Parker. That was her ex-husband. But Fred Major and Ophelia, they were my real parents, okay? They mothered me, fathered me, everything that I needed, they gave me, right? The firstborn of a new generation, making me the eldest grandchild of the Major bloodline. As I'm a descendant, I really didn't understand what I would need, what I could actually say today, because I didn't live here. You know, I'm 72 next week, and I still didn't have any understanding about Colored Rosemont until I was about 5 years old. About 5 years old, that was when I discovered, oh, this is a beautiful place. This is a beautiful place. Because my grandfather had a garden, and that garden was plentiful. It had everything in it. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But Fred and Ophelia made me hungry for life, okay? They encouraged my curiosity. I like to study things that others weren't interested in. I provoked them with deep questions, and their reply would always be of a religious context from the scriptures. I need to know more, and I needed to know more, and I was always on a quest to figure out, okay, you gave me that, but now I need more. I was very curious. When I asked to participate in the project, I was concerned about how much I had to say, but I realized it was a privilege, a real privilege, even though I didn't literally live here in the Colored Rosemont. It was still a privilege for me to know the people and understand it, because I really grew up with a lot of them who came from here. Say, my auntie Murray Fields, along with her siblings, Fred Jr., Thomas, and James Major, they left Pittsburgh to come here. And they grew up here in this neighborhood as teenagers, right, Stan? Correct. They were teenagers when they grew up here. Yes. And then Eugene and Eunice, they were born after they came here to Virginia. Say, my mom Eunice was the baby of the family. And none of the family talked too much about Pittsburgh, but they spoke a lot about Colored Rosemont. Every one of my grandmother's children were talented beyond average in sports and music. They all had lovely voices, and during the Christmas holiday, the way they sang and get together and harmonize, it was like you were in, I don't even know, in a cathedral or something. It was just beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's like each one harmonizing with their unique voices. All but my Aunt Mary engaged in sports. But the rest of them, their sports ability was praiseworthy, very praiseworthy. They played baseball, basketball, and football. Yes, championship teams. It was hard for me or any of my cousins to live up to their skills or the levels of their skills. We tried, but it was hard. I was around the age of 4, okay, when I discovered, like I said, the garden, okay? And it made me think that I was wealthy, that we were wealthy, because it was just so many beautiful things growing there. And I could go in and sit down and hide and eat all the little cherry tomatoes, okay, and go home with my mouth burning. But it's like I just could not forget. That was my first introduction of the Colored Rosemont. And as I said, if Colored Rosemont was like this, it must have been heaven, okay, for everybody else who actually lived there. Another important lesson, okay, well, let me see. This is the important thing, and I'm kind of wrapping this up. But lessons that I learned from them. And it says, never, and they'll never leave me. It says, learn to hold your peace, P-E-A-C-E. Learn to hold your peace. Remember to respond to challenging situations. Please take time not to react, but to respond. Okay? And another important lesson I learned is like when you get knocked down, get back up, shake it off, and keep it moving. Okay? And another big lesson was to smile through adversity. I added something to that, trying to tell my children, okay, to remember to keep that childlike attitude. Keep that childlike attitude towards life. Oh, not saying to be delusional, okay, but remember not to let the pain from any adversity linger too long. Don't let it linger. And my favorite lesson I inherited from the souls of my grandparents was it's not what you do, it's how you do it. God knows you're a human. Do life with love, respect, and gratefulness. I observed my grandparents maintaining their independence while navigating through a world that wasn't set up for them to win. Grandfather predicted I would have my own business, and I proved to him to be correct. I'd done that and much more. I would say it came from my observations as a child, watching my grandparents remain independent, watching them survive, and putting the work in to overcome all their challenges. It made me the person I am today. Discovering the fact that Colored Rosemont was a self-sufficient community offered me the thought process to remain self-sufficient for myself to the best of my ability, simply because that's where I came from. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Mr. John Green, would you again lead us in a song? The words, I know everybody here knows it, but the words from the first stanza of Lift Every Voice and Sing is in your program.
Okay, I just want to say that it's really emotional. Well, I'm here at the mic. Okay. But the committee that worked on this project, thank you, Francisca. We thought it only appropriate, since we were honoring or recognizing Colored Rosemont, to do the Negro National Anthem. It's what it's entitled, by the Johnson Brothers. So if you'll join me in singing, the words are printed in the program for those of you who don't know. I was waiting for an introduction. Can we start over again, please, Arturo? Voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the. Let us as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the of the rising sun of a new day.
Right, and to close out our program today, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce my colleague, Audrey Davis, with the Office of Historic Alexandria, Director of African American History. Welcome, Audrey.
Hey, thanks, Gretchen. Good afternoon. As we are preparing in just a couple of minutes to unveil the historic Colored Rosemont marker, I want to say that this work that we've done with our Colored Rosemont Community Initiative has really been community history at its best. It is descendant-led and working with city staff, working together to correct injustice and to respect all of the residents that make up our great city here in Alexandria. If you really want to know what makes America great, it's acknowledging that all history has value. That's what makes a country and a city like Alexandria great. In today's fraught world, our work does not erase what is difficult. We do not hide it. We shine a light on it. Our work is to give voice to those who were not given a voice years ago. It lets their descendants share their stories and guide us as staff in our interpretation of this history. Some of the best memories in my career have been listening to local families tell me what it's like to grow up in various neighborhoods around the city. And I swear one day having Veronica tell me about Christmas here in Colored Rosemont, I actually felt like I had to go get my sweater. And she really brought it home, that the cold, the snow, the outdoor activities, she really made it come alive. And I also think it's really interesting that both the Historic Marker Program and also the work of Virginia Fitzhugh Thomas started in the 1920s. Virginia Fitzhugh Thomas brought this land in 1926, and I'm honored to say that her granddaughter, Catherine Whitman, is with us today, with Virginia Fitzhugh Thomas's great-granddaughter as well, and they're our honored guests here today. I look forward with pride and gratitude to honoring this remarkable community through the formal unveiling of the historic marker. I want to thank all of the Office of Historic Alexandria staff. Can you wave your hands who've worked on this program? Francesco, Dan, Artura, Alicia, Eleanor, Garrett. All of us work together as a team to bring this history to light, and we're so proud to share it with you today. So at this time, I am going to invite the Colored Rosemont descendants, Ms. Whitman, our mayor, city manager, and council to move towards the sign for the official unveiling. Once the group is in place, I will invite the rest of the office can get closer to take pictures. We'll have 2 formal pictures, and then everyone will be allowed to take pictures. And I also want to remind everyone, we have cold water in the back, and we have cookies in the back after everyone's done. Thank you for sharing a wonderful day with us. Thank you for honoring and remembering Colored Rosemont. Take care.